Good evening, everyone. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parsha Mishpatim. In the sefer, we're on Daf Tuf Shin Lamed Hey. We're doing Os Hey, section number 5. In Parsha Mishpatim, of course, the Torah describes a wide variety of civil laws, and one of the sections of laws deals with stealing and robbery. And so the Zera Shimshon is going to start with the Gemara in Baba Kama that connects to that topic. So he says as follows: Sham Perik Basra, there in Maseches Baba Kama in the last parak, Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Rabbi Yochanan said, Kol hagozel mechavero shava pruta, anyone who robs from his friend, from his fellow, something worth a pruta. A pruta was the lowest coin at the time, in the time of the Gemara, and so that means we can call it similar to like a penny's worth. So if you rob something from your neighbor that's equal to a penny, ke'ilu notel mimenu nishmaso. It's as if you have taken that person's soul. Shenamar, as a pasuk says, and this is a pasuk in Mishlei. In a moment we'll read the whole pasuk, but the Gemara just quotes a fragment of the pasuk. Es nefesh be'olav yikach. The soul of its owner he will take. Until here is a quote from the Gemara. So let's quote that pasuk. It's in the first parak of Sefer Mishlei, and it says as follows: Kain orchos kol botsea botza. So it is the path, so it is the way of all those who seek unlawful gain. As nefesh ba'olav yikach, the soul of the owner, the soul of its owner, the property's owner, the money's owner, he will take. So Rabbi Yochanan says, you see that in that pasuk, it's talking about someone who unlawfully takes the property of someone else, the money or the property of someone else. And the pasuk specifically says, nefesh ba'olav yikach. This is like taking the soul of the owner. So we might think that taking a small amount of money, a little bit amount of money, certainly a shova pruta, a penny's worth, is no big deal. It's not hurting anybody, and we might have all kinds of ways to justify it. Well, Rabbi Yochanan puts a stop to that in this Gemara in Baba Kama, and he says it's as if you're killing the person. It's as if you're taking away their soul, even if you take the smallest amount of money from them. So the Zera Shimshon says, Tzarech Ian, we need to investigate, to analyze this statement. Minole le Rabbi Yochanan. From where did Rabbi Yochanan know that afilu shava pruta lechude, that even a shava pruta by itself, such a small amount, even just that amount, mikre nefesh ba'olah, is considered the soul of the owner. The dilma, perhaps ad sheyeh davar rashum, that until you have some kind of significant amount, then maybe this pasuk doesn't apply. What that means is, the Zera Shimshon says that pasuk in Mishlei that Rabbi Yochanan uses as his source that we just read a moment ago about taking the soul of the owner, it doesn't say anything about shava pruta. It doesn't say anything about any particular amount. So the Zera Shimshon says perhaps that pasuk should be interpreted to refer to some kind of significant amount. If you take a significant amount of someone's money, if you take some kind of significant amount of their property, then it's as if you've taken their soul away. So minole the Rabbi Yochanan, from where did Rabbi Yochanan know that pasuk is actually talking about even the smallest amount of money that you take from a person can be referred to, as it is in that pasuk, as taking the nefesh be'olav, the soul of the owner. The ode, and another question, hakol lefi mashehu adam. Everything should depend according to the status of this particular person that you are taking something from. V'chi im yigzol le'asher shava pruta. And is it really true that if you rob something from a rich individual that's worth a penny's worth, yiyeh nidon ki'ilu notel nishmaso mimenu, that you will be judged, or the thief, the robber, will be judged as if he took the rich person's soul? Is that really true? Rabbi Yochanan Ka'amar, and Rabbi Yochanan said, stam, plainly, without any qualifications, hagozel mechavero, someone who robs from his friend, meaning that he didn't say if you rob from a poor man, if you rob from an indigent person. He said if you rob from anyone, a shava pruta, a penny's worth, it's as if you took that person's soul. So the Zera Shimshon's first question was, where did he get that from? And the second question is that even logical? Does that even make sense? Could that possibly be true? That when you, if you rob from a wealthy person a shava pruta, which ostensibly the person could care less about it, as we know, there's that old experiment about how much, if you drop a coin or money of some value, how much would it have to be worth for you to stop and go back and pick it up? So many people say, if it's a penny, I'm not going back. If it's a nickel, I'm not going. Oh, if it's a quarter, I'll go back. I'll bend down. I'll go back and pick up a quarter. Other people, oh, anything less than $1, I'm not going to go back for. So the Zera Shimshon is saying wealthy people are not going to care about a shava pruta, and yet you're saying that if you rob that from them, it's as if you took their very soul, their very life. So those are his questions. So now the Zera Shimshon in the second paragraph in the second column is going to begin to answer his questions. V'nira l'taretz, and it appears that we can answer our questions b'mai de'isa b'Shabbos, with something that is stated in Maseches Shabbos. This is actually a Mishnah, the first Mishnah in the 14th parak in Maseches Shabbos, and it says as follows: Shmona shrotzim ha'amurim b'Torah, the 8 creepy animals, something like a weasel, a mouse. There are 8 specific creepy, crawly animals that the Torah lists, called the Shmona Shratzim. These 8 animals, which are listed in the Torah, Hatzidon, if someone traps them on Shabbos, Ve'hachovel bohen, and if someone wounds them on Shabbos, Chayev, the person is obligated to bring a korban chatas because he or she has violated Shabbos by doing so. So if you trap one of the Shmona Shratzim, again, let's say, as we said a moment ago, let's say a mouse. So if you catch a mouse on Shabbos, or you cause a wound, you don't kill. We're not talking about killing it, which would obviously violate Shabbos, but you just injure it and you cause it to bleed by wounding it. You have violated Shabbos in both of those scenarios. The hatam. Now, what we're saying now is not in the Mishnah. Up until here was a quote in the Mishnah. Now the Zera Shimshon is explaining the hatam, and the reason why, if you wound one of these animals, that you violated Shabbos, mishum netilas neshama. It's because of the prohibition of taking the life, the soul of an animal on Shabbos. We are not allowed to kill living creatures on Shabbos. Ki hadam hu hanefesh, because the blood of an animal, the blood of a living creature, is its nefesh, is its soul. And therefore, when you wound an animal, you might think, well, I'm okay because I didn't kill it. So this Mishnah, according to the Zera Shimshon, is teaching that is absolutely not correct, because the Mishnah says if you wound one of these Shmona Shratzim, one of these 8 specific animals, then you have violated Shabbos. Why? Because of Netilas Neshama, the prohibition of taking the life of an animal on Shabbos. V'ayin shom b'Rashi v'Tosfos, and look there in the Rashi and the Tosfos, and the reason the Zera Shimshon says to do that is because if you look at Rashi, you'll see that Rashi in fact gives 2 explanations as to how a person would violate Shabbos by wounding an animal. The first one is Netilas Neshama, which is the one that Zera Shimshon just mentioned, that it's as if you killed the animal when you wound it. And the second one is really kind of unusual. It's that if you wound the animal and blood comes to the surface of the animal, that's going to color the hide of the animal. It's going to color the skin of the animal. And there's a prohibition of coloring and dyeing hides on Shabbos. And this would be violating Shabbos because of coloring or dyeing, which is a conflict. That second answer is discussed and is a complicated answer. But nonetheless, that's what Rashi suggests. And in Tosfos says of Rashi's 2 explanations, the first one is the ikar. The first one is the main and the correct, accurate answer, which is Netilas Neshama, because it's as if you killed the animal. So the Zera Shimshon says, look over there and you'll see that Tosfos supports the first answer in Rashi, and that's the one we're going to go with, that it's as if you killed the animal when you wound it. V'chein hadin b'chol balcha. And so it's the same law with any living creature. It's not just limited, the Zera Shimshon says, to these Shmona Shratzim, these specific 8 crawling animals listed in the Torah. it's also true of any living creature. Shem yotzi mimenu dam, that if you do something that causes blood to come out of the animal, o yihye nitzrar hadam, or even if you cause the blood to congeal, to gather inside of the animal, and no blood comes out. So we would call that a bruise. You strike the animal in such a way that a bruise is left there, a hematoma is there, and the blood is congealed under the skin, but no blood comes out. Even so, chayev mishum netilas neshama. You're obligated to bring a korban chatas in the time of the Beis Hamikdash because you violated the malacha of netilas neshama. V'halo revius dam levado adam. And this is what we say about a person too, that a revius, which is just a few ounces of blood from a person, is considered the lifeblood of the person. V'af b'behema, and so too with an animal. Dam hanefesh hu davar muad. The lifeblood of an animal is a small amount. Like we say in the laws of shchita. V'afilu hachi, and even though we're in some places, the Zera Shimshon saying, even though in some places regarding a man, a person, a human, we talk about a revius of dam, that amount, which again is about 3.5, 4 ounces. And by regarding the animal with regards to shchita and the dam hanefesh, the lifeblood of the animal, we also say it's an amount. It's not just a drop. It's a small quantity, but it's not the tiniest amount. Afilu hachi kol dam shebabal chai. Nonetheless, when it comes down to it, every amount of blood, the smallest amount of blood in a living creature, mikre nefesh, is called the nefesh, the soul of the animal. And that's why when you cause the animal to bleed, we don't say if you cause the animal to bleed, you cause a revius of dam, let's say, or some other quantity to come out, then it's as if you violated Shabbos. That's not what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said as soon as you wound it and cause it to bleed, you violated Shabbos. So any amount of blood is mikre nefesh, is called taking out the soul of the animal. Umizeh lomad Rabbi Yochanan. And from here, Rabbi Yochanan learned his rule, lidamim, about the money, about the value, dahainu hamaos, which is the coins, or the value of the coins, the shava pruta. And we have to pause here because the Zera Shimshon has kind of used an interesting play on words. The word damim can have two meanings. Of course, dam we know means blood, and damim would be plural of bloods. But damim is also used to mean value or money. Very frequently in the Gemara, that's how the Gemara would refer to the value or someone's money would be damim. Or let's say you're obligated to pay someone money, so then that would be called damim. You're chayav to pay the money or the value of what you broke or what you stole. And so the Zera Shimshon says Rabbi Yochanan took a law that had to do with dam, that had to do with blood, and the blood of an animal, taking of the blood of an animal out on Shabbos. And he said from the fact that the smallest amount of blood is called the nefesh of a creature, and he said we can apply that to human beings as well. So therefore we learn that the smallest amount of money, of damim, that you take from another person, that represents that person's nefesh, that person's soul as well, which he's going to articulate right now. Shekeshem shebedam amrinon, that just like regarding blood, we say shebechol tipo mikre netilas neshama, with every drop of blood, it's as if you took the soul of the animal away. That's what we just said by Hilchas Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos. Achinami, here also, bechol tipo, with every drop, dahainu bechol shava pruta, every pruta's worth, every penny's worth of money, mikre nefesh be'olav yikach. It is called taking the soul of the owner, the pasuk, which is what the pasuk in the exact language of the pasuk in Mishlei. So let's pause for a moment to understand how the Zera Shimshon answered his first question. The first question was a very straightforward one. Minole the Rabbi Yochanan. From where did Rabbi Yochanan know that when the pasuk in Mishlei talked about taking the soul of the owner of the property that you robbed, that was even a shava pruta, even the smallest amount? And the answer that Zera Shimshon gave was, he said, Rabbi Yochanan looked at the rules of Shabbos and how taking even the smallest amount of blood from an animal by injuring it, by wounding it, violates Shabbos because of netilas neshama, taking the soul of the animal. Well, so too he worked and applied that to the principles in the case of stealing or robbing someone, that even the smallest amount, it's as if you've taken their soul. The Zera Shimshon is now going to continue, and I think we'll see that he's shifting over into a different area, specifically some of the laws that relate to aniyim, poor people, indigent people, and at the end we'll talk about possibly why he shifted into this area. But let's take a look at what he says. V'lachein amar hakasuv, and therefore, meaning now that we've learned this principle about if you take even the littlest amount, it's as if you took a person's soul. Therefore, Amar HaKasav, another pasuk in Mishlei says, this is from Mishlei Perek Chaf Beis, and the pasuk says, Al tigzal dal ki dal hu. Do not do gezela, do not rob from a poor person because he is a poor person. V'chule. And it's a good idea to hear this whole pasuk. So here's the whole pasuk in Mishlei. Al tigzal dal ki dal hu. That's the part that the Zera Shimshon quotes. Don't rob from a poor person because he is poor. Ve'al tidake ani basha'ar. And don't crush a poor person at the gate. So the Zera Shimshon says, V'koshe, this pasuk is difficult. Mahu al tigzal dal. What does it mean, don't rob from a poor person? V'chila ashir mutar ligzol. Is it permissible to steal, therefore, from a wealthy person? By the pasuk in Mishlei specifying don't rob from a poor man, it implies in a way that it might be okay to rob from a rich person. So that's the first question that Zera Shimshon asked. Ve'od, in another question, mahu hatam. What is this reason that the pasuk gives, ki dal hu? Don't steal from a poor person because he is poor. What does that mean? Would someone ever give that reason? Like, hey, why did you take that guy's money? Oh, because he's poor and he doesn't really need it. What do you mean? Of course you shouldn't steal from a poor person. They need the money worse than anyone else. So what does it mean? Don't steal from a poor person because he's poor. V'mahu, and also what is v'lo tidake ani bishar? What is that last phrase in the pasuk that mean when it says don't crush a poor person at the gate? What is that referring to? So the Zera Shimshon is now going to answer these three new questions on this pasuk in Mishlei, starting with a Mishnah in Maseches Peah. Aval b'Maseches Peah, but in a Mishnah in Perek Hey, the fifth Perek of Maseches Peah, Tnan, we learned, Lo yiskor adam hapoel, a person who owns a field should not hire a laborer, a worker, al menas shel yilkot beno acharav, on the condition that the worker's son will glean in the field, will pick up what was left in the field, acharav, after his father and the other workers come through and cut down the grain. So the Mishnah is saying you should not do that. But before we talk about why, let's understand what we're talking about. Let's illustrate the case. So imagine that a person owns property, owns fields, agricultural fields, and let's just say it could be any crop, but let's just say it's wheat or barley, it's grain, and he's hiring workers to cut down the grain and to help him and to harvest it for him and to bring it in. So if one of the workers says, listen, I want to work for you, I'm willing to work for you, but only on the condition that you allow my son to come into the field after I and the other workers have gone through and cut down the grain. I want to make sure that he's going to have the right to come into the field and pick up any of the droppings, the gleanings, or the things that poor people are entitled to take. And the son, obviously in this case, is a poor, indigent individual. So that's an arrangement that the worker wants to make. And the Mishnah says, you cannot allow to make that arrangement with a worker. Now let's get the reason. Upirish Harav, and the Bartanura in his commentary on the Mishnayos explains, Sha'al yedei kain, through this, hapoel menakel lo min haschirus. It's understood that the worker is going to reduce his pay. V'nimtza, and then we would find porea chovo, that the owner of the field is paying a debt, mishel aniyim, from that which belongs to the poor, and that is prohibited. So let's understand what we're saying, what the Bartanur is saying. He's saying that in any situation where a worker says, I'll work in your field and I'll help you cut down your grain and bring it in and harvest it and everything, but only on the condition, I'll only do this if you allow my son to come in the field and glean. The Bartanur says it's understood in that arrangement that he's going to lower the amount that he would normally take. So just to say an example, if he was going to normally charge $50 a day to work all day in the field and cut down the grain, so now he says, I'll take $40, but I want to make sure that my son is allowed to come in and walk behind us and pick up all of the gleanings and all of the dropped grain as aniyim, as poor people are supposed to be allowed to do by Torah law. So the Bartanur says, you can't do that. Why? Because the man's son, the worker's son, is, as we said, an indigent individual. And therefore, he's entitled by Torah law to come into the field and glean and collect the droppings and the things that are the payah, the things that are left over for poor people. So the owner of the field is never allowed to make any kind of arrangement or deal, even if it's to the benefit of the people involved and with the agreement of the people involved. The owner of the field is not allowed to make any arrangement where he is benefiting. It's as if he's paying a debt, right? He would normally pay this worker $50. Now he's going to get away with paying the worker $40. Why? Because he lets the man's son come in and pick up the gleanings and the other things that poor people are entitled to. Well, that's not at his discretion. He can't benefit or profit from that arrangement because the Torah tells him, landowner, you are obligated to leave these things for the poor people and to allow them to come into the field and pick these things up. You're allowed to benefit from that, and you're not allowed to lower the money to pay less to other people, in this case, the father of the poor man, in order to kind of get a compensation for this. So you're not allowed to do that. The Omar HaKasuv and the Pasuk in Mishlei is referring to this kind of case. Why? Because it says, Al tigzal dal, don't steal from a poor person. Al tigzol le'aniyim acherim, don't steal from other poor people. Afal pisha gam ben hapoel dalhu, even though the son of the worker is a poor man. Meaning, let's go back to the words in the pasuk. Al tigzal dal, don't steal from a poor man. Ki dalhu, because he is poor. Meaning, you might think, the landowner, the owner of the field might think, hey, I'm making a good arrangement. A guy comes to me and he says, I'll work for you, but I want to make sure my son, who's destitute, who's poor, can glean in the field. Well, if he wants to do that and that works for him and he wants to lower his amount, then that should be okay. Who am I harming? It's something that both of these men, the father and the son, are agreeing to and want to. It's something, a condition that they want to put, that they want to make with me, and it's something that they want to do. So don't steal from a poor person, ki anihu, and justify it by saying, oh, I'm doing this arrangement because he's poor and I'm letting him into my field and I'm letting him glean. And obviously he and his father are assuming that he's going to be able to pick up so much stuff that it's worth more than, let's say, the $10, than the amount that I'm going to lower the father's payment by. Don't do that. Don't steal from a poor person because he's poor, because there's some justification in what you're allowing him to do as a poor person, specifically and namely to come into your field and pick up the things that poor people are entitled to do. This is considered a type of robbery, because ultimately you are paying your debt to the worker, mishel aniyim, from the property that rightfully belongs to the aniyim, according to the poor people, according to Torah law. So it's kind of a unique situation that according to the Zera Shimshon, that the pasuk in Mishlei is referring to. But to sum up, for that first part of the pasuk, what the Zera Shimshon is saying is there may be unique situations, unusual situations, where it is exactly because a person is poor that you might figure out some kind of arrangement to do that the poor person assumes and thinks is to his benefit. And it may well be to his benefit, but nonetheless, it's forbidden. Nonetheless, it's usur, because you're never allowed to benefit and get gain, get profit from the fact that that poor people are allowed to come into your field and glean and pick up the things that they're entitled to do. You're not allowed to do that. Even in a situation in which the people involved would like to proceed with that kind of arrangement. Now, let's continue. The ode, and continuing in the pasuk, al tidake oni bisha'ar. The second part of the pasuk said, don't crush a poor person at the gate. What does that mean? Al tachalish koach eze oni bisha'ar shelcha. Don't weaken the power of any particular poor person when he comes to your gate. Kishayavo'u lilkot peah, when the poor people come to pick peah, the portion of the field that needs to be left for the indigent. When they come, don't take away their rights. Kimo, for example, mi she'eno meniach es ha'aniyim lilkot. For example, in the most extreme case, a person, an owner who stands there and says, I'm not going to allow any poor people in the field to come in and pick the things that they're entitled to pick. That's a prohibition. You're not allowed to do that. They have a right to come into the field, and you're not allowed to prevent them. O shehu meniach es echad ve'echad lo. Or he allows one poor person to come in, but not another poor person to come in. That you're also not allowed to do. An owner of a field might very well think to himself, okay, I have maybe friends, I have relatives, who knows, I have people I'm connected with who are poor, and they deserve to come into the field and pick, and so I'm going to allow them, but I don't want them to be kind of pushed and trampled by all these other poor people who I don't know, who are strangers. I'm not going to allow them all, so I'll fulfill the mitzvah of matanos la'aniyim, of gifts from my field to the poor, of giving from my field to the poor. I'll fulfill it with legitimately poor people, but the ones that I choose. You're not allowed to do that. You cannot let some in, but not let others in. You can't pick and choose which poor people are allowed to come in, because the Torah has given all of the aniyim, all of the people who are legitimately poor, the right to come in. And why should you not do these things? Ki Hashem yoriv rivam. This is a quote from the beginning of the next pasuk, because Hashem will take on the poor people's quarrel. Hashem will come and represent the poor people, so to speak, and fight the battle with you. If you, as a landowner, do these things, you prevent poor people, either in general or certain poor people, from coming in your field to pick what is rightfully theirs, then Hashem will represent them, so to speak, and take it out and take up their quarrel against you. And of course, no one wants that. V'dayik lomar bishar. And the pasuk was very careful, very particular to use the word in the gate. Don't crush a poor person in the gate. Why did it use that language? Mishum disnan, because we learned in another Mishnah in Maseches Peah, shalosh av ayos bayom. There are 3 times that an owner of a field must appear in the field. Bashachar, in the morning, uvachatzos, and at midday, uvamincha, and in the afternoon, v'chule, etc. Lo amru ela kedei shelo yivchasu. And the Chachamim did not specify these 3 times that the owner has to be there, except to teach that he cannot do less than that. Meaning that if an owner of a field wants to appear, and we'll talk about what the purpose of this appearance is in a moment. If an owner of a field wants to come out to his field to welcome the poor people, that's what this is about, to come in and pick from the field more than 3 times, he's allowed to do so. But he can't do it less than 3 times each day. Of course, not on Shabbos or Yom Tov, but on the days when it's permissible to pick the grain and to pick the crops, he has to do it a minimum of 3 times to appear in the field and give permission to the poor people to come in. Shahabal habayis tzorech lios omed b'sha'ar sadehu. the owner of a field must come and stand at the gate at the gate of his field, b'sholosh zvanim elu, at these 3 times, kidei, in order sheyuchlu ha'aniyim likach peah, in order that the poor people will be allowed and will be given permission by the owner to come into their field to take the produce that's being left for them. Deha keshelo yeh balabayis imam, because the rule is, the halacha is, if the owner is not there and the owner doesn't give permission, einam rishayim likanes, poor people are not allowed to enter the field. Poor people cannot just show up whenever they want and go into a person's property in their fields and start taking things, even though they're entitled to certain things that were left in the field and certain portions of the different crops and the different produce. It's true, the Torah entitles them to those things, but they cannot go in on their own volition. They can't trespass and just go into a person's property and start taking produce. They need the permission of the Baal HaBayit, of the homeowner. V'lachein amar hakasuv, and therefore the pasuk says, Al tidakei ani b'shar, don't crush the poor person at the gate. Sheyamot sham, that he might stand there, mamtin oscha, and wait for you, ve'ata lo telech, and you do not show up. Meaning, if you don't show up during these 3 specific times that the Mishnah obligates you as the homeowner to be there and allow the poor people to come in and take what is rightfully theirs, then you are crushing the poor people. You're crushing their expectations because they're standing there waiting to come in, and you don't show up and allow them to come in. And again, why? Ki Hashem yariv rivam. Again, that's the next pasuk, the following pasuk. Hashem will take up the quarrel on behalf of the aniyim, on behalf of the poor, and fight their quarrel against you, which, as we said, of course, no person would ever want to be in that situation. So the Zera Shimshon, the piece stops here, but it's very important, I think, to go back and understand what the Zera Shimshon did, because he did something very subtle and did not really articulate why he did it. And what is that? He started in the beginning talking about stealing from anyone, nothing to do with poor people, nothing to do with aniyim. He even made the point specifically to say that when Rabbi Yochanan said, if you take a shava pruta, if you take a penny's worth or so from a person, it's as if you took their soul. He made the point of saying, Rabbi Yochanan isn't distinguishing and saying that if you take a pruta from a poor person, it's as if you take their soul. No, Rabbi Yochanan says if you steal from anyone, even a rich, wealthy person, it's as if you're taking their soul. So he began his discussion talking in general about people and the prohibition of stealing, and he compared it to taking blood. It's as if you're taking the soul of a person when you steal from them. And that was the first point that he made. And he really could have stopped there if he wanted to. Once he connected the pasuk in Mishlei about stealing taking a person's soul, and then he brought in the Mishnah from Masechah Shabbos and taking the blood of an animal and how that's called the nefesh of the animal. And once he put all that together, he really could have stopped. But he continued, and then he got into the issue of aniyim and poor people and peah and the crops and the field, and that second pasuk from Mishlei, which was later on in Mishlei. And why did he do that? So he doesn't say exactly why he did it, but I think it's very reasonable to assume the reason he did that is to give a context to the first thing. The second half of this piece in the Zera Shimshon gives a context to the first part. The first part says, if you steal anything from a person, it's as if you're taking their soul. Blanket statement, steal from anyone. Then he discusses laws that specifically apply to aniyim and poor people, I think to make the point to say it's never up to us to decide, to count other people's money, so to speak, to decide who's wealthy and who's poor and who can afford a loss and who can't. A person might think, let's say a person in the financial world, in the markets, in the banking world, in the investment world, might think, I'm dealing with wealthy people. If I'm not so careful here, or I keep a little bit more here, or I charge a little bit more of a premium here, or I do all different kinds of things, it might be easy to rationalize it and think, hey, these are not poor people, these are wealthy people. So, I can I can be less careful in how I deal with these kinds of situations. So the Zera Shimshon says, no. The whole point that Rabbi Yochanan is making is to say that we have to be careful with every other person's money as if they were aniyim, as if they were poor people. We intuitively understand that we have to be very careful with poor people in their money. That's what they live on. When a poor person comes by and they're collecting tzedakah, and we give them, 25 cents, 50 cents, $1, whatever $18, whatever we might give them, hopefully more, but whatever we might give them, we know this is probably what they're going to eat today. This is how they're going to eat. This is how they're going to feed their family. This is how they're going to pay their rent. So we intuitively understand that. Even by aniyim, we saw that the Zera Shimshon is bringing in, several sources to talk about how careful we have to be. But when it comes to even wealthy people or any other people, we have to realize that we have to be as careful in financial matters with other people's money as if we're dealing with poor individuals who truly, it's their soul, it's their nefesh, it's what they live on. And therefore, he brought in the pasuk about nefesh, nefesh ba'olav yikach. It's as if you're taking the soul of a person, whoever that person might be. We have to have that level of care and that level of concern over other people's money. Yasher koach to everyone for joining in the learning tonight.